followed by Larry Parrish and Gary Carter 1 year later. In 1975, it was Ellis Valentine, and Andre Dawson came on board in '76.
I don't think that we did it to get any credit for it, but we did it for us to save our own skins.
The last vestiges of Bronfman's insistence on building from the ground up can still be seen throughout baseball years after anyone's worn an Expos uniform. It's no wonder this franchise was often hailed as one of baseball's best.
If you go through the Expos history, as of 1969 till the end, I challenge any organization to have developed so many outstanding players.
I had a special feeling toward this 1994 team. I thought, finally, here is the championship team that's going to take us to the promised land.
We have a great manager, we have good young players, good pitching, we play fearless, and we don't care who we play, and I think we have the talent to do it this year.
The Expos appeared unfazed when before the '94 season, the powerful Atlanta Braves joined the East Division in a long-needed realignment.
There was no team that was going to stand in the way of the Montreal Expos in the National League East, whether it was the Braves, the Phillies, combination of two other teams playing against them at the same time. The '94 Expos were that good.
What a story. The best team in baseball resides in Montreal.
Just 17 years earlier, much the same level of excitement gripped the city when the Expos moved into Olympic Stadium.
The first game there were over 50,000 people.
I remember being at the home opener in '77. They lost 7-2 against the Phillies, but I'd never sat so high up in anything in my life.
It was huge, it was immense, it was enormous, and it felt great. It felt really major league.
Montreal was now in the big leagues, and the expectation level was raised considerably.
In part due to the presence of new manager Dick Williams, a two-time world champion who had little to lose with this team.
The year before, they lost 107 ball games, so we had no place to go but up.
And why not? For the young seeds the Expos talent scouts had planted were about to blossom. Men like Gary Carter, Andre Dawson, Larry Parrish, Ellis Valentine, Warren Cromartie, Steve Rogers, Bill Gullickson, and Scott Sanderson comprised a core that was eager to win.
By 1979, we had become a contending team.
And behind this homegrown talent, they captivated the city of Montreal with a 95-65 record. Their first ever winning season brought them a second-place finish, but a first for the franchise.
We drew 2,100,000 people. The whole nation of Canada was turned on by the Expos.
That's all.
But the promise of even greater success in 1980 ran headlong into labor unrest.
It would be unfortunate if it comes to that.
It looks like, with us being so far apart, that some kind of a work stoppage will be forthcoming.
And one did indeed bring spring training to a halt for 8 days. A new deal was struck, though there was a good chance that talks might resume in '81. But despite the labor issues, more than 2 million Expos fans turned out again in 1980, fourth most in the National League, only to be disappointed in the end.
Expo #1! It's 1980. We went down to the final weekend of the season with the Phillies.
Tied up at 4 in the 11th. The 2-0 pitch.
Uh-oh.
That will be a home run for Mike Schmidt.
1979, we lost out to the Pirates by 2 games, and in 1980, we lost out to the Phillies by 1 game.
It was becoming a frustrating trend, especially for a team that was trying to maintain its eager new fan base.
We didn't win. And at the end of the day, winning is where it's at, because you can guarantee pretty full houses for the next 5 years if you ever win.
So the team made a few adjustments in 1981 that they hoped would push them over the top. Homegrown and ready-to-go rookies Tim Wallach and Tim Raines both cracked the starting lineup.
Wallach's arrived, the Raines had arrived. Wow, that team was getting good.
Unfortunately, the new kids were not the year's enduring memory.
The strike is on. The reports we've been getting indicate that a substantial number of the players have already left for home.
Baseball's first ever mid-season work stoppage forced some major changes. With no baseball for 50 days, the schedule was shortened, and a unique split-season playoff format ended up benefiting the Expos.
First part of the season, the Expos are not there. But they win the second half of the season.
I'll tell you what's really exciting. It's been a long time since we've been waiting for this, baby. 3 years, now 3's the charm, so we're gonna go.
It felt so damn good to know that there was tickets on sale for the playoffs and that there was this chance that the Montreal Expos would be in the World Series.
The prospect looked even brighter when they dispatched the Phillies in 5 games in the first ever division series. The league championship series against the Dodgers went down to a deciding 5th game as well. And tied at 1 in the 9th, Expos ace Steve Rogers, on just 2 days rest, was called on in relief.
The Expos closer, Jeff Reardon, was not available to pitch. He had had some back problems.
Steve Rogers was full of adrenaline. He had never come out of the bullpen before. He was too strong.
Rick Monday, the batter, with a game tied up at 1.
No one knew it at the time, but the fortune of a franchise was about to be decided by one pitch.
One pitch changed definitely the course of the history of the Expos.
Here's the 3-1 pitch, and it's swung on, fly ball, center field, Dawson going back.
And I can still see Andre going back.
Still on the run, trouble at the fence.
And I said, oh, that's gone.
Home run, Monday, 2-1 Dodgers.
Awful way to end the season.
The Expos version of Blue Monday will never be forgotten in Montreal. For despite winning more games than any National League team from 1979 through 82, this would be the closest the Expos would ever come to a World Series.
It was just unfortunate that we never materialized the overall talent that we had to win a World Series. Then eventually the team started to break up.
Primarily in an effort to keep the payroll under control, Montreal bid adieu to many of its core players over the next 5 years. Parrish, Cromartie, Carter, Gullickson, and Dawson all became Expos. These were business decisions, but much like when Rusty Staub was traded, Montreal fans had to once again endure the loss of their heroes.
That just took the wind out of everyone's sails because you could look around the major leagues and see an all-star team made up of ex-Expo players.
The pain was felt at the box office, too, as attendance dwindled to just over 1 million fans by 1986, the same season that Claude Brochu was named the new team president.
When I took over from John McHale, it became very clear in discussions with Charles Bronfman that he was frustrated.
We had these young, feisty teams and damn good teams, and I'd go to a stadium and see 70,000 people in this cavernous place. I'd be heartbroken.
Now in his 18th season as Expos owner, Bronfman's zest for the business of baseball was waning.
Charles Bronfman became very concerned with the direction baseball was taking.
When I first went into baseball, if you had a really lousy year, you could lose $100,000. When I left baseball, if you had a really lousy year, you could lose between $10 and $20 million.
The changing landscape led Charles to seek out a buyer for his beloved Expos, with the provision that they keep the team in Montreal.
When Charles Bronfman decided to sell the team, we knew we were in trouble.
Finding that buyer, though, was no easy task. The Expos proved to be a hard sell. It took Brochu more than 2 years to cobble together a consortium of 12 owners, a process that raised some red flags with the fans.
It was hard to believe that the Expos were owned by many companies. That was a bit odd, and let's face it, it's not a word you hear every day, consortium.
Almost immediately, this new group discovered that no one entity among the 12 had the monetary wherewithal to absorb the financial challenges that were unique to Montreal's small market existence. TV and radio rights were a prime example.
Dave Van Horn tonight is broadcasting his 4,000th game for the Montreal Expos.
From 1969 through 76, the Expos were Canada's team, seen and heard coast to coast. But that would change.
Toronto Blue Jays came in, they wanted their territory, they were granted it, and that forced the Expos out of the most lucrative part of the country.
Montreal became a provincial team. It was the Quebec team.
The best we ever did from a rights perspective Probably somewhere between $22,000 and $25,000 a game. Somebody like the Dodgers at the time were getting $200,000, $250,000 a game.
Factor in an unfavorable exchange rate where the Expos generated Canadian funds while paying their players in American money, and it was clear that Bronfman's deep pockets would be missed.
There was no way you could turn around and say, oh, we're in trouble, Mr. Bronfman's going to help us. We knew that corporate institutes could not help us. So Mr. Bronfman is the biggest loss in the history of Expos.
This has been in my pocket since 1994. It's the 94 team. I've carried that with me ever since because that was the most talented team, most exciting team that I'd ever been a part of.
Gresham will head to third. He might circle the bases. Here comes Marquise. The throw by Pena. Safe for the Expos win 3-2.
They had speed, they had power, they had pitching.
Ken Hill gets the shutout victory.
Leadership on the front end of the rotation in Martinez and Hill. Those guys threw 94, 95 miles an hour.
Conine is out of there.
We were having so much fun. We were so young, so fast. Everybody threw hard.
And Wetland gets the strikeout and the save.
You have to understand, too, that we had
Moises Alou, left field. Marquise Grissom, center field.
Larry Walker, right field.
and balls didn't touch the outfield.
We told you how the Expo outfield turns doubles into outs, and there's an example of it.
We have a certain cockiness to us, and we all know how good the other one is. Everybody got a real good, strong arm, and I think we can cover a lot of ground. I think that's what makes us a little different from the other outfielders.
This one ripped to right. Here comes Walker. He got it.
Everybody can run, everybody got a good arm, and everybody can pretty much hit, too.
And he hits this high and deep. It's way up in the second, third deck, in the green seats.
Despite the Expos' money woes, the 94 team was filled with promise, but they were in fact a work in progress.
Testing 1, 2, 1.
We started off slow. We were under 500, and I remember Felipe got a little upset with the effort the team was giving at the time.
Another quick throw. Oh! Picked him off first base.
Shortly after that, the team just turned it around, and you could sense that everything was clicking.
And you hear the noise. There is a lot to cheer if you are a Montreal Expo fan tonight.
The Expos were 21 games over 500 at the All-Star break. And with 5 representatives at the Midsummer Classic, they showed 2 nations that their success was no fluke.
Moises Alou, first at-bat of the night for him.
Alou's drive to left center did more than just snap an all-star skid.
It was fantastic to see one of my guys do it because we were always so overlooked.
Well, it's tough to ignore a team that goes 20-7 after the All-Star break en route to its best record ever.
And the Expos, they're on a pace to win 110 games.
Best team in baseball, the best team and the best young team.
The best team in baseball, their record about to be 30 games over the 500 mark for the first time since 1979.
We had a chance, realistically, to go all the way.
But this snake-bit franchise would never get the chance to fulfill that dream, for the game's labor woes once again reared their ugly head.
Baseball faces in 1994 for the first time a diminution in its revenues. I deeply regret the fact the players see no reason to respond to that set of problems.
Strikes me as a terrible shame that because the large market and the small market owners can't agree on how to sort out baseball's revenue among themselves, that they have to force the players to strike.
On August 11th of '94, the Expos held a 6-game lead over the Braves in the NL East and owned baseball's best record. And then,
like a lot of things in life, you anticipate something and fear that it's coming, hope that it isn't. And when the day is here, there's an incredible amount of sadness.
It was very sad to see what was happening.
It's sad we had to leave this way, but sometimes you gotta do what you have to do.
Everybody believed that baseball would find a way to correct the situation. We might miss a couple of games, but they will find a way to resolve the problem.
And then September happened.
Vous savez, on a une grève qui a duré jusqu'à date 34 jours.
I remember Mr. Brochu announcing it.
c'est qu'on va procéder vraiment à l'annulation de la saison 94 et des séries après saison.